In celebration of the town of Versailles' Bicentennial, Main Street Versailles proudly presents Our Town's History.
Hi, my name is Jeff French. I'd like to welcome you to my home. My wife Sue and I purchased this home here at 244 North Main Street in Versailles in 1995. We've lived here for the past 22 years. We've done a lot of restoration and renovation work, and I'd like to share with you some of the history and some of the architectural details about this house. Now, our home looks as if it should be accompanied by the house next door at 226 North Main, the Dr. Cornett house. But actually, the Dr. Cornett house was built about 40 years before this home. This home was built in the Greek Revival style, has a notable designation by Indiana Historic Landmarks. As I said, we've owned it since 1995. It was built between 1855 and 1860 by Eli Hunter. Eli and his first wife, Nancy Yater, lived here. They had two children. Nancy passed away in 1873. At that point, Eli married again, married Anna Beer, and you may remember the name Beer because Beers were the founders of the Versailles Pumpkin Show. They had 6 children and lived in this house until around 1890 when Eli passed away, leaving his house to his wife Anna. There are several architectural details I'd like to share with you about our home. First, if you notice when you walked in the house that there are panes of glass around the front door, which are called window lights, and within those panes are several carved architectural details. The outer symbol is a pomegranate, which represents prosperity. The inner symbol is a pineapple, which represents welcome. At the time this house was built, it was constructed with no fireplaces. Each room was heated with a new contraption called a wood stove, which was considered a step up from a drafty old fireplace. The style of this particular home, with the Greek portico and balcony, is a little unusual for our part of the country. It's more of a southern style Greek revival that you see a lot more in Kentucky and Tennessee. The plate rack in the dining room is also a detail that was built into the home initially. Another unique detail in this house is that the hardware that you see on all the doors and all the windows actually predates the home all the way back to 1840. And a friend of mine who's a historic preservation architect pointed that out to me, and he thinks that the reason you see that older hardware on the doors is because you would have only found the newer materials in the cities on the rivers. Also, another interesting note is that this house supposedly had the first bathroom in Versailles. Now, even though the home was built by Eli Hunter, it's more commonly referred to as the Tony and Eva Hunter house. Tony was the son of Eli. He was born in this home in 1878, studied medicine at Kentucky University in Louisville, graduated in 1904, and later married Eva Stewart. When Dr. Hunter moved into this house, he practiced medicine out of this very room, which he called his surgery, from 1904 until he entered the Army in World War I in 1917. While he was serving in World War I in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, he contracted influenza and ultimately died on April 18th of 1918. At that time, he was 40 years old, his wife Eva was 34, and they had 2 small children. Mrs. Hunter loved to entertain. When you look at old articles in the newspaper, you'll see where she hosted receptions and parties in this house and also in the backyard. She actually used to host the Versailles Pumpkin Show Queen contestants in the backyard for a tea every year. Tony was a member of the Knights of Pythias. He played in the local band. He was a member of the Commerce Club, the Medical Association, and numerous other clubs. The stone monument that you see out in our front yard, which everyone refers to as a hitching post, is actually a memorial that was made to Dr. Hunter. And we believe that memorial post was set after his passing, possibly by the Knights of Pythias. I have a great picture of the couple that I've shared with you where they're standing in the front yard of the house in 1913. If you notice, Tony is standing toward the front of the picture. His wife Eva is standing toward the rear. And she was doing that sort of as a display of modesty because she was pregnant at that time. She was expecting her first daughter. And when you look at the picture, you can kind of see that. And that was pointed out to me by one of the heirs. So after Dr. Hunter passed away, Mrs. Hunter was a teacher. She worked for the Welfare Board. She worked for the State Unemployment Office. She was a founding member of the Versailles American Legion Auxiliary. She was a member of the Tyson Methodist Church, member of the Ripley County Historical Society, and a member of the Versailles Spiritualist Church. Now, the Spiritualist Church is a unique thing. It was a fairly common denomination at the turn of the century. It was a Christian-based church, and I'll give you the definition. of the church. They believe in religion, philosophy, and science based upon the knowledge that consciousness survives physical death and can be communicated with through mediumship. A modern example of the spiritualist church is Camp Chesterfield, which is on the northeast side of Anderson and is in one of the current centers for that church. This was actually a trend that started as a result of a great surge in scientific awareness at the turn of the century. And I have a really great picture of Mrs. Hunter surrounded by what are referred to as her spirit guides. This kind of photo was fairly common with the members of that church. One of the best stories that I have is at one point Mrs. Hunter and the members of the spiritualist church were having a meeting here at the house, and through some means they were communicating with Dr. Hunter. Of course, Dr. Hunter had passed away at that point. The doctor communicated to them that he would like his medicine bag, and they set it at the top of the stairs in the entry hall. When they did that, the medicine bag disappeared. Another piece of folklore about our home that we heard many times when we moved here, it relates to mortgage raiders, and they're passing through the town of Versailles in July of 1863. And the story goes that the local women gathered at our home in the kitchen and started cooking food in the summer kitchen. Their hope was that when the Confederate raiders came to town, they wouldn't damage or steal from the town if we treated them with respect. The story goes that General Morgan and the Confederate officers were fed in our dining room, and we do know that the town escaped relatively unscathed. There's another piece of local history that our home was involved in. In September of 1897, when the hanging tree incident occurred, the gun that was used to shoot the outlaws before they were hung was thrown into the well of our home. It was later fished out of the well by a local antique collector and is still in our community today. The final thing I'd like to say is that as the owner of a historic home, I want to say that when you undertake preservation or restoration of a historic home, it makes you feel as if you yourself are part of the fabric of that place. You become defined by the home and by the care and work that you put into the place. The sense that countless actions and emotions are stored within the walls of a historic home, or to a greater extent to the community that you live in, makes you understand how important it is to preserve the home and that community. It's incredible to me to see that our town council, our Main Street organization, all the clubs and churches are working so hard to preserve our history and the quality of life here in Versailles, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
This video was made possible by Jeff French Surveying. Thank you for your support.